am 30 years old. I'm unemployed. I am living off the very end of my savings. I switched jobs 3 times in the past 2 years. I got dropped by the last podcast network that I was with. I have no 401k. I have a very small Roth IRA. I have no desire to get married or have kids for the foreseeable future. And the worst part is, with all of this dysfunction, I'm not even famous. I'm not even considered an it girl by New York Magazine. And more often than not, my algorithm makes me feel like I am completely irrelevant. And I guess all that is to say that I am so not where I thought I would be at 30 years old, or where I thought I should be at 30. You know, when my life was a confusing mess at 25, as it is for so many people, I always thought to myself, just make it to 30, make it to adulthood, and you will be fine. You will have it all figured out. And guess what? I'm here, and I wake up most mornings going, bro, what the
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Honey Badger Radio. This is the monthly call-in show, the Badger Lodge, where we will take your thoughts, questions, and comments. Whatever you want to say, feel free to say it. Hopefully you don't hear my dog barking in the other room. If you do, let me know in the chat. I am looking at y'all's in the chat. Hope you guys are doing well. So if you want, this is how it works, okay? If you want to call in, there's a link in the description of this video to join the Discord server that is just for call-ins. And you can look, if you don't have to have the Discord program on your computer or phone to use it. It will open up in a browser instead, and you can just go into the screening channel. And once in the screening channel, which is or the screening room rather, once in the screening room, which is a voice channel, our screener, my Inquisitor, which is Darth Sonic, he's going to be in there. He's just going to see what it is that you want to say, get a general idea of your statement or question or whatever. And he's also going to make sure that your audio is working. We don't have to have you appear on video. Don't worry about that. And if you're really shy, you can just have him type out a statement or question, and I will read it on the show and give my thoughts. But before we start taking calls, I haven't opened up the floor yet. I wanted to look at something that I found very interesting. There is a change in the wind, as they say, and I think this might be necessary. I don't know if it's good yet, but I think it's necessary and also a little bit inevitable. So there's a lot of fretting going on over Generation Z. Now, you guys, I've been following this for a while, for a few years now. Doughboy, you can give Darth a hand if you wish, yes. Just if you have the appropriate authority, you can do that. So this has been, I remember years ago, I think it was probably around 2016 or so, there were people talking about how Generation Z is shaping up to be like, you know, the most, I guess, anti-feminist generation. I don't want to say right-wing or conservative because people get triggered by that. So I'm just going to say like anti-feminist or the most critical of feminism, right? And then there was a little bit of like confusion about it because you started seeing Gen Z on TikTok and in other social media spaces, and they seem to be more woke in some ways. But what it appears to be, and this is what makes sense to me anyway, based on what I've seen, is that it's not so much that this generation is shifting, it's that the boys and girls of the generation are going in two different directions. They are splitting in two directions. The girls are becoming more progressive and left-wing and big government and all of that, institutional solutions to what they perceive as institutional problems, and the boys are going more right-wing. They're going more independent, they're going more against government, and they want more individual freedom. And that's what's really happening, I think. And that starts with feminism, because the relationship between boys and girls or men and women is the root of everything. There is like no, don't let anyone tell you differently. It all started with a man and a woman. That's ultimately what it comes down to. It transcends everything else, and finally, people are starting to figure this out. Scott Adams put up a good tweet about it where he said, the only reason why we have all of these various. Oh yeah, what's up, Darth?
2 seconds. Doughboy is apparently screening, but he's not. He doesn't have screener privileges.
Okay, well, I can make him a screener.
Okay.
At least I think I can. I don't know if I have the authority to do that. But maybe he can just help you, and then you can just.
I don't have the authority to make him screener.
No, you don't have to make him one, but like he can just help you do the job.
Fair enough.
Like just, you know what I'm saying? So
I know for a fact that you're the founder of this server. You definitely have the privilege.
I did not make it.
You didn't?
And he does have the role, by the way. He does have the screener role.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. Never mind. Because I'm just
all right.
wrong.
Go back to the screening room, please. And I'll send people your way in a moment.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay. Sorry about that. So anyway, so what I've noticing lately is that there are more and more boys of the younger generations that are rejecting the status quo, essentially, which is what feminism is. It is the status quo, it is the way we do things. It is the model under which everyone is simply expected to operate. So naturally, you're going to get people, like boys especially, that are going to question that, they're going to challenge that, and they're going to oppose it. So we're going to look at this article. I'm going to read through it. It's from The Guardian. I put a link to it in the description. It's an archive link. And then we'll look at a couple of conclusions, and then we'll take your calls, okay? So this one is entitled, Gen Z boys and men are more likely than baby boomers to believe feminism harmful, says poll. A fifth of men aged 16 to 29 look favorably on social media influencer Andrew Tate. Now, some of you guys are going to get triggered by Andrew Tate. Remember, this is The Guardian. The Guardian has a bias. They will invoke the most inflammatory people to support their side of the case, okay? They can't stand the idea that boys are rejecting feminism. That's the important question. Don't let the Andrew Tate thing distract you, okay? Stop. Just stop it. Be an adult. So I'm going to read the article. Boys and men from Generation Z are more likely than older baby boomers to believe that feminism has done more harm than good, according to research that shows a real risk of fractious division amongst this coming generation. More on that in a little while. I got another article. 1 in 4 UK males aged 16 to 29 believe it is harder to be a man than a woman, and a fifth now look favorably upon the social media influencer Andrew Tate, the polling of over 3,600 people found. So listen to that. 1 in 4 men between 16 and 29 believe it's harder to be a man than a woman. Is this objectively true? Doesn't matter. I imagine that it is pretty true in terms of when you look at like what we do for women and what we don't do for men. But this also can harm women as well, because they get this like inflated sense of self-importance, and then they act on that, and I think they destroy their lives in the long run. So I don't think it's good for anybody, but that's correct. A smaller percentage look favorably on the social media influencer Andrew Tate. So what does favorably mean? You have to question the way that they're wording everything. What does favorably mean? Does it mean that they don't want to kill him? Because I could see The Guardian saying that. That's why I'm saying don't let the way that they write these articles are designed to cause you to have a stronger, more irrational reaction than what you should have. The fact that these men are rejecting feminism is completely fine, okay? Now, if you want to challenge me on that, you can call in. There's a link in the description. Go into the Discord, talk to Darsonic, make sure your audio is set up correctly, and you can come in here and tell me why, I don't know, Andrew Tate should be beheaded in public. And we'll talk about it. But I'll continue. Tate, the British-American former kickboxer who has 8.7 million followers on the social media platform X, is facing charges in Romania, which he denies, of human trafficking, rape, and forming a criminal gang to sexually exploit women. He has talked about hitting and choking women and has said he is absolutely a misogynist. You see you see the framing that's going on here? This is The Guardian. Remember that. This is The Guardian. That's what they're doing. The best-selling author and Canadian academic Jordan Peterson is also seen favorably by 32% of the 16 to 29-year-old men. So that's actually a higher percentage, which is good because Peterson's not bad. Compared with 12% amongst women of the same generation. Peterson speaks up for demoralized young men and says Tate offers forthright aggression as an alternative to cringing defeat. On feminism, 16% of Gen Z males felt it had done more harm than good. Well, that number, those are rookie numbers. You need to pump those numbers up, kids. 16%, that's nothing. And again, it's only 16% according to this poll. And The Guardian felt that that was so troubling, that was so awful that they had to write an article about it and they had to try and stop it. So this is like what's really going on here. It's all about maintaining a status quo. That's what The Guardian is doing, okay? Anyway, 16% of Gen Z males felt that it had done more harm than good. Among over 60s, the figure was 13%. So that's not even that much of a difference, really. The figures emerged from Ipsos polling for King's College London's Policy Institute and the Global Institute for Women's Leadership. The research also found that 37% of men aged 16 to 29 consider toxic masculinity an unhelpful phrase, roughly double the number of young women who don't like it. Yeah. I wonder if that's like part of this is some of the work that we've been doing. Because I've been talking about toxic masculinity for a very long time, even before it was called that. And I even called it out when they tried to rebrand it, like as homogenous. I think it's like homogenous masculinity. And there's like other kinds of masculine, traditional masculinity. That was like how it started out. So I wonder if this isn't like, I'm not trying to brag. I'm just wondering if like talking about this and putting it out there has had this effect, you know? So anyway. Here is a graph. So you have men age 16 to 29, very favorable. This is like the percentage. This is about Andrew Tate. Somewhat favorable. Then you have neither favorable nor, so neutral, no response. Somewhat unfavorable, very unfavorable. So still the overwhelming majority of men and especially women find him like unfavorable. So even though they're complaining, what they're saying is it's not enough. That there should be more disfavor. It should be like 100% not in favor. So the fact that there exists, even if it is still a minority, the fact that it exists, that there's like favorableness, and with men, it's actually only somewhat favorable. So they're not even saying like he's like the shit. You know, so you see what I'm saying? So, and then they break it up by ethnics, minorities. I don't know why. Like that's kind of like our people who are ethnic minorities, not men and women? Like what is this polling? What is this graph? Anyway, this is a new and unusual generational pattern, said Professor Bobby Duffy, director of the Policy Institute. Normally, it tends to be the case that younger generations are consistently more comfortable with emerging social norms as they grew up with these as a natural part of their lives. Larger proportions of young men still think it's harder to be a woman today than a man, that feminism has done more good than harm, and have an unfavorable view of Tate. So yeah, it's true that most still do. It's still a majority. They're wrong about, especially about feminism, and about it being harder to be a woman today. I think that women live in the best time in all of human history in the West, like the best possible time, the most abundant time, and they're still complaining and resentful. But Buffy said there is a consistent minority of between 1/5 and 1/3 who hold the opposite view. This points to a real risk of fractious division amongst this coming generation. Professor Rosie Campbell, director of the Global Institute for Women's Leadership at King, said the fact that this group is the first to derive most of their information from social media is likely to be at least part of the explanation. There has been a zeitgeist where young women feel that they can own the idea of feminist identity. Young men hear a lot about girl power, but don't, at this stage of their lives, understand the inequalities that we know are in the world when you hit work and childcare. So they're saying, oh yeah, boys don't like the girl power messaging because they haven't grown up and realized that women do have it harder, I guess, which is obviously a lie. I think girl power is a lie anyway. I don't think women should be telling themselves that they have power just because they're girls, and that they should actually be trying to do something with their lives and figure out what they want. But what do I know? I'm just a man. And here's the next graph. 1 in 6 British men aged 16 to 29 say that feminism has done more harm than good. So the red means more harm than good. The gray is neutral or no response, has little effect either way, equally good and harmful, done more good than harm. So most people, again, believe that feminism is good. Most people. But again, this number is not good enough for the people who write these articles. It's not good enough for the feminists. It's not good enough for the elites. They want absolute 100% submission to their ideas, to their religion. In the meantime, social media algorithms are filling the vacuum, she said. This could be something that changes when young men enter the workforce, but we can't take that for granted given how important social media is in the way that we understand ourselves. Ethnic minority men are the most likely to follow Tate. Oh, is that so? Well, I knew that, but that's weird. I wonder how are they going to wrestle with that? How are you going to square that circle, guys? With more than a third agreeing that he raises important points about the real threats to male identity and gender roles, compared with 12% amongst white men. Yeah, because white men are probably the most self-hating group because of people like you, Guardian. Sample sizes are too small to determine which ethnic minority groups might be driving this, the researchers stressed. I think I know. But anyway, Tate, who is mixed race, has said he converted to Islam after previously saying he was an atheist. He has been tweeting in Jamaican patois and declared that melanin, the skin pigment, gives wisdom and insight along with bravery and physical power. That's cringe, man. That's cringe, Tate. Tate preaches that young men should take control of their own lives, shouting at them in one recent video over footage of him vaping, firing a gun, and driving a sports car. You're not supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be monumentally influential and capable. Colin Brent, a youth worker in Ealing, said some of Tate's appeal to black and minority ethnic young people appeared to be that he offered a more direct route to change in their lives. Young men from disadvantaged communities hear a lot of talk around policies to tackle inequality and racial discrimination, Brent said. These things are abstract. People don't feel the difference in their lives immediately, and it's hard to see the difference being made. So, Black Lives Matter was important and touched on deep structural inequalities. No, it burned down buildings and cities and destroyed neighborhoods. And it actually did nothing for black people at all. Like the core of what they needed was a family that was together with a man involved with his children and a woman who helped him do that. That's what it needs. But no, let's just burn down targets and we'll see how that goes. People are just infuriating. But a lot of young men ask, what difference does that make to me today? Yeah, but it doesn't, because you're still a man. That's the thing about BLM too. It's intersectional. Black men are the white people of black people. Remember that. Andrew Tate talks about immediacy, and that's what people find attractive. He says that this is how you should be a man. This is how you should get rich. He offers an alternative to the slow process of political change. And that's the end of this article, written by Betsy Reed. So you see that they're coping and seething right now because boys are looking. Look, the world as it is does nothing for them. Nothing. They get demonized in the media. They get targeted by teachers. They don't get a good education. They give everything to women. The women shit on them everywhere. And then boys are like, you know what? I'm going to look for help somewhere else. And Andrew Tate says, I can do this for you. This is the thing they don't get. They don't think boys should have anything. And so when they go, they're going to go after like the people that you might say, well, that's like the worst choice. Well, sorry, but that's where he's going. Like, what are you going to do? Send over here? You can. I'd like that. But we don't have a platform. He does. We don't have the same size. We don't have the same reach. He does. So like, what are you going to do? I can't say go back to the feminists because they're the ones that put these boys in this position. So yeah, bravo, go for it. You know, that's all I can say. I don't know what to tell you. All right, so I got a super chat, sorry. If you guys want to send us a message through super chat, Rumble, Rant, or super chow, please do so, and I'll be sure to read it on the air. Oh, this is wrong. Let me move this like right here. All right. So Senior Stick says, can't be against feminism and be for Andrew Tate, as he said, is a feminist and agrees with feminism. So ? Yeah, but he's not the right kind, you see. I'm not, he'd probably say whatever it took to say to get his platform up. But remember, this article uses Andrew Tate as a tool, but this is not about him. Not about him. They want what they're doing is that like these guys like this get propped up by big tech, by algorithms because they are the best example of the straw man they want to present men's issues with so that they can tear it down. So he says a bunch of boneheaded things and he acts like a cartoon. I mean, for all I know, he's basically a Fed. I don't know. But the point is they push that out there and then like they say this is what the manosphere is or this is what men's rights activists are. And obviously it isn't. But I'm not convenient. He is. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, is he a feminist? Probably. I don't know. I mean, but the point is we're missing the primary point here, which is Gen Z boys are rejecting feminism in higher numbers than previous, although not nearly high enough. So if you guys want to call in, you can feel free to do so now. Remember, link is in the description of this video right now. Go to the Discord, go into the screen room, talk to Darth Sonic and Doughboy. Make sure your things are all set up, and hopefully you'll come on and we'll take your calls, whatever you want to say, whatever, give us your hot takes, whatever they might be. All right, so now we got a related article. So this one is really, really recent. Thursday, February 1st. Okay, so this just came out. Now, obviously, there's been like scares around this in the past where they do a poll and they realize that boys are a disproportionate number or a troubling number of boys are rejecting, feminism. Although I still think the numbers are very, very low. And I'd like to see that shit go to 100%. That's what I'd like. But if it got to 50%, I'd be pretty happy, right? But still, most boys, they're raised in a feminist society. They're raised in a feminized society, so they're going to look favorably on it. And it takes somebody with a very, keen mind and a strong will and some moral courage to say, you know what, I don't think this is fair. I reject this. So, all right. Let's go to this other article. I got this other article here. So this one is from January 23rd, a little older. And don't mind the picture of Henry Kissinger. I don't know why he's in this video. It's not about him, I don't think. But this one is by Yahoo News, and it's entitled Gen Z's Gender Divide is Huge and Unexpected. But I mean, for me, it's if anyone who was paying attention, this gender divide, it's a political gender divide is how they're wording it, is completely predictable. Completely. Okay, so something strange is happening between Gen Z men and women. Over the past decade, poll after poll has found that young people are growing more and more divided by gender on a host of political issues. Since 2014, women between the ages of 18 and 29 have steadily become more liberal each year, while young men have not. Today, female Gen Zers are more likely than their male counterparts to vote, care more about political issues, and participate in social movements and protests. Yeah, right. While the gender gap is an enduring feature of American politics, at no time in the past quarter century has there been such a rapid divergence between the views of young men and women. The startling speed of the change suggests something more significant is going on than just new demographic patterns, such as rising rates of education or declining adherence to a religion. The change points to some kind of cataclysmal event. After speaking with more than 20 Gen Zers, well, that's not really a great sample size, but okay, whatever. My colleagues at the Survey Center on American Life and I found that among women, no event was more influential to their political development than the Me Too movement. In 2017, women around the world began speaking out about their experiences with sexual assault and harassment. Gen Zers were then in high school and college, and for them, the movement came at a formative moment. Luckily, I had that all over social media to shape the way I look at dating and men, a 21-year-old woman told us about #MeToo. She said it allowed her to, quote, use other people's experiences to form a sense of putting a guard up, end quote. A 20-year-old woman offered a similar take that Me Too empowered her to stand up for herself. Quote, I think it makes me less of a doormat, end quote. As I've written previously, the Me Too movement united women politically. Although the challenges women face vary dramatically in the US, sexual harassment is a ubiquitous experience impacting women across lines of social class, politics, age, and race. 8 in 10 women say that they have been sexually harassed at some point in their lives. And addressing that reality quickly became central for women. After the inauguration of Donald Trump, hundreds of thousands of women marched in Washington in the largest single-day protest in American history. But while women were rallying together, many Gen Z men began to feel like society was turning against them. As recently as 2019, less than 1/3 of young men say that they face discrimination, according to Pew, but today, close to half of young men believe that they face at least some discrimination. Isn't that funny how they word it? So when they talk about women's experiences, they just say it like it's true. When they talk about men's experience, they say they believe, like it's some kind of faith-based thing, that they face at least some discrimination. In a 2020 survey by the research organization PRRI, half of men agreed with the statement, "These days, society seems to punish men just for acting like men." I wonder where you got that radical notion from. It increasingly feels like Gen Z men and women are living in different planets, each guided by the belief that they are navigating uniquely hostile terrain, and understanding why is crucial to bridging the gap. I wonder why. Why are women believing that men are out to get them at every turn and that the Me Too movement is only proof of that? And why do men feel like everyone hates them? Boggles the mind. I can't for the life of me. I got to think about this. I can't for the life of me figure it out. It's a real pickle. It's a real puzzle, isn't it? Okay. Me Too feminism. The Me Too movement established a sense of solidarity amongst young women. A survey conducted in 2022 found that 2/3 of young women believe that in most or in every way, what happens to women in the US will have bearing on their own lives. The idea known as linked fate in sociology. Yeah, sociology is totally legit, guys. But this sentiment was not shared by older women. Only 36% of women older than 65 said the same. This bond has bled into Gen Z's women's politics, especially around issues like abortion. A survey we conducted after Roe v. Wade was overturned and just before the 2022 midterms found that no issue mattered more for young women than abortion. 61% said it was a critical concern, while only 32% of young men said the same. Not that young men even are allowed to have an opinion on it, but thanks for polling them anyways. In the 2022 midterm elections, all young voters strongly supported Democratic candidates, but young women demonstrated much greater support than men. So again, women are on the left, and that is just fine. Men are also on the left, but they're not on the left enough. I wonder why they would say that. It's almost like they want an authoritarian left-wing government that is massive. Gen Z women also united around the importance of female leadership and representation. A recent Pew poll found that 72% of women aged 18 to 29 believe there are too few women serving in high political offices. Oh, you mean like Nikki Haley? You mean like Fannie Willis? You mean like Kamala Harris? You mean like Nancy Pelosi? Like Feinstein? What are you talking about? And what is the quality of these women's their ability to lead? What is it? Well, it sounds like corruption to me. A steep jump from the roughly half of women over 50 and less than half of young men who said the same. Would you say this support for somebody like, I don't know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, or what's the name of the woman with the really short hair, Carrie Lake? Would you? No, those aren't women, because you don't like those women. Their politics are bad. They basically want to be in the kitchen, like chained to a stove, right? Anyway, I digress. Anyway, more than 7 in 10 young women said that the lack of female representation in political office is because women are held to higher standards than men. No, women are held to the same standards, but men are better at achieving them. And I don't have a problem saying that, because I think that men evolve through sexual selection to be as good as they are. Women are not. They don't have the same selective pressure, so they're not going to be as far along. I mean, that's what I think, anyway. This newfound solidarity amongst women is also showing up in the workplace. For decades, a strong majority of men and women alike had reported a clear preference for the male boss. But the percentage of women who said they preferred a male boss plummeted 12 points between 2014 and 2017. By that year, the year of the most recent polling, a majority of women reported preferring a female boss for the first time. Although again, female boss does not mean good work environment. See Kamala Harris, who has consistently had people under her fired because she didn't get along with them. At the same time, women's dissatisfaction with the status quo has only intensified. In 2016, 61% of women said they were satisfied with the way women are treated in American society, according to Gallup survey. Today, that has dropped to 44%. Men shift to the right. As women's political priorities have solidified, young men's priorities have melted into mush. Oh, of course. Yeah, men are melting into mush. That's the way we're going to word this, right? Yahoo News. Surveys consistently show that young men are far less likely than women to say any particular issue is personally important to them. A survey we conducted last year found that young women expressed statistically significant greater concern for 11 out of 15 different issues, including drug addiction, crime, climate change, and gun violence. There was not a single issue that young men cared about significantly more than young women. Yeah, because young men are probably worried about their personal lives and finding a decent job, supporting a family, and finding a woman, and not worried about these big issues. Most of these large scale political issues that people like Yahoo News insist that people have an opinion on, they are only afforded to people who are not busy living their life. So women who are single are the ones that are most concerned about this. Men who are single are just distracting themselves with video games and drinking, drugs, whatever, porn. They're not, because they know that they're not allowed to have an opinion on it, because we've already put men in a black category. See my video about Maoism and how they put people in black categories so that they can't speak on an issue. Like they mentioned abortion earlier, men are not allowed to have an opinion on that at all. They've already been told, no uterus, no opinion, so men aren't having an opinion, and now they're writing articles saying, why don't men have an opinion? Because the only opinion you're allowed to have is to agree with women. So what's the point? But these other things, like crime, drug addiction, climate change, these only work on people who have nothing else going on. If you have a family and you're raising children and you're basically doing a job and you're buying a house and you're worrying about your day-to-day life, you're not thinking about those things. So this is why they work to keep women single, and they work to keep them in a state of fear and paranoia and anxiety about the world. This is why women are on SSRIs in a disproportionate rate, because they're worried about everything except their life. So that's what they do on purpose. So yeah, men don't have an opinion on that. What's the point? And a part of it is also because men have become despondent, because again, they've been thrown into this black category. Their opinions don't matter, so they just do their own thing, right? And eventually that leads to nihilism. This is why the self-deletion rate for men is so high, because it's well, what's the point? And this is the last thing I want, but this is what's happening, and it's because of you. Not you, the audience. I mean, Yahoo News. Anyway, young men are also unhappy. See? For a growing number, feminism has less to do with promoting gender equality and more to do with simply attacking men. It's always been that way. It's not recent. Always. A 2022 survey by the Southern Poverty Law Center found that 46% of Democratic men under 50 agreed that feminism has done more harm than good. Wow, 46%. Democrat men, this is in the US. So the other article is The Guardian, so I believe that was in the UK, and that was a different sampling. That makes sense though, because the UK is definitely more secular and I think more feminist than the US. Although the US feminists are their tactics get adopted everywhere else. Even more Republican men agreed. Yeah, of course they did. In our recent poll, roughly 1 in 4 male Gen Zers said they have experienced more gender discrimination than older men, and less than half of Gen Z men identified as feminists, with only half saying that they support the Me Too movement compared to 72% of women. Also because men tend to think for themselves a little bit more, so there is also that. One young man we interviewed said he didn't pay much attention to Me Too. Quote, it just seemed like a bit of buzz going on around celebrities, and awful things are happening in the world all the time. If I did ponder, It would bring me down, and so I just choose to not even pay attention, end quote. Fair enough, I would agree, except that it can be used to destroy you, sir. Another said Me Too was just something he picked up from a woman's study class in college, but not anything that he thinks much about. And you shouldn't. At least not to the point where you feel like you need to blame yourself. The lack of interest could be because Gen Z men have their own issues. Richard Reeves, the founder of the American Institute for Boys and Men, has meticulously documented the challenges facing young men in America. They are struggling more in school because it's a feminist framework, so obviously. They are less likely than women to go on to graduate from college, again, because school is not aimed at men anymore. It doesn't give them the skills they need, but fortunately for these men, it also doesn't put them six figures in debt. They have fewer close friends than previous generations, because men aren't allowed to hang out with each other and form groups and clubs so they can make friends, and are 4 times as likely to commit suicide than women. I wonder where that's coming from. Reeves argues that the state of affairs requires that we hold 2 seemingly contradictory ideas at once. Men at the highest rungs of the economic ladder are still advantaged by a system that perpetuates gender inequality, while men on the lower rungs of society face unique challenges because they are men. Yeah, but even the men at the top benefit women. This is the thing that they won't tell you. If you're watching this, Darth, I see what you did. Okay, never mind. All right, let's keep going. While women have turned to the left for answers to their problems, men are finding support on the right. Trump helped redefine conservatism as a distinctly masculine ideology, stroking grievances and directing young men's frustration towards liberals and feminists. I wouldn't give Trump that much credit. I think that there was, if you really want to blast from the past, I think it started with Atheism Plus and Elevator Gate. And I think the reason why young men are more critical of feminism is because of everything that came from that. And they should have. It's obvious. So I don't know. Trump is kind of he's like the avatar that they attack because he embodies everything they hate. He's like a rich, white, straight billionaire, with a big family. That's what they hate. It's not something that he did. It's just what he represents. He's a symbol. He's their effigy, He's their boogeyman, and then they demonize the boogeyman, and then they associate anybody that they don't like with the boogeyman. I'm surprised they didn't mention Andrew Tate. They might still. I haven't gotten that far. They could just, you can drop all kinds of names, right? But anyway, stoking grievances and directing young men's frustration toward liberals and feminists. There are signs the message is resonating. Republican affiliation amongst white men aged 18 to 24 jumped from 28% in 2019 to 41% in 2023. Well, that might have something to do with the fact that the country's in the absolute worst state that it's been since Jimmy Carter's time. But okay, I guess we'll blame men for just becoming conservative or something. Maybe they just want something different. I don't know. We didn't have 3 wars going on at the same time when Trump was in office. I'm just saying, we weren't on the verge of World War III with nukes and Iran when Trump was in office. That wasn't happening. So maybe men are making a logical decision. But anyway, according to a Harvard Youth poll, outside politics, right-leaning figures such as Andrew Tate, Elon Musk, and Jordan Peterson are attracting young men looking for an ideological home. Again, Elon Musk? This is why you don't take what they say literally, because they're just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. To say that what the hell do Andrew Tate, Elon Musk, and Jordan Peterson have in common other than they don't hate men? Other than that. Other than they support, I don't know, free speech, maybe. That's the only thing that I can find. Elon Musk has done more for the environment than these people have done in their whole lives combined. And yet they claim to be the ones caring about the environment. I'm just saying this is what he has done, and yet he's in the same club. Most young men are probably not interested in making America great again, but they do feel acutely the need to secure a place for themselves in a culture that readily identifies male advantage but ignores the challenges that young men face. Out of a sense of increased insecurity, more young men are adopting zero-sum views of gender equality. If women gain, men will inevitably lose. It's an outlook that makes them defensive, encourages them to ignore or overlook enduring challenges women face in society, and can even spur misogyny. No, it does not. whatever. As one 35-year-old man told Pew in 2022 about Me Too, too many people are taking advantage of a serious situation because it's trendy, or they are greedy, or just want attention. And this attitude has real-world consequences. In the online gaming world, why is you bringing this up? I don't know. 75% of Gen Z women have reported experiencing harassment. All right. Speaking up, this article goes, there's a little bit more, but I'm going to mention something about gaming in a second, because that's interesting that they brought this up. Because I want you to see that there is like a serious, like there is a shift happening within young men in Generation Z, and I imagine Generation Alpha, which is the generation after Z that's currently coming up right now. They're just kids, but they're going to be adults before you know it. So, they are moving. Well, I don't like the way this frames it, because they use words like right and Republican. That's not precise. That's very messy language they're using. I know why they're doing it. They're basically trying to create a scapegoat. They're trying to like construct a scary thing that men are doing. Really, what it is that men are sick and tired of being beaten down. They want to be free. They want to like be able to like, carve out their own life, like pursue their destiny on their terms. And they don't want people in the way. And the fact is that these people are always in the way. The Me Too movement destroys lives. Men are pointing this out. They're avoiding women, which they should. I mean, they're not doing it enough, but they should certainly be discerning, because they can be destroyed. And that's important. But these people want men to just pretend like everything's fine and stop complaining and get on with it. And they want them to be stoic while also shaming them for toxic masculinity, which I'm surprised they didn't bring up in this article. But anyway, last section, no winners. An off-cited statistic that conveys the enduring absurdities of the gender gap is that until very recently, there were more CEOs named John than CEOs who are women. So what? Men are going to pursue ambitions. Do you not think that a male CEO has to give some of his money to women? They probably give most of their money away. Do you know what it takes to become a CEO? They're doing the same shit. It's like, okay, sure. What percentage of the population do CEOs make up? Despite the fact that they're men, how many CEOs are there in the population? What's the percentage? Across most industries, from politics to academia, men in American society still control more resources, earn higher wages, and enjoy more prestige. But few young women have any experience in the boardroom and in the classroom. Bullshit, because it's their female peers who are crushing it. Oh, few young men have any experience at the board. Yeah. Well, women are doing better in academia, but that's not really saying much, since academia is garbage. But both genders are feeling increasingly precarious, and it's causing them to drift further apart. A recent Washington Post editorial lamented what this growing political divide means for dating and marriage. If Gen Z men and women can't agree on politics, it's going to get harder for them to find a partner. But if anything, that understates the problem. Based on our interviews, there appears to be a growing eagerness amongst both young men and women to blame their problems on each other. And in a society in which men and women can see their interests as irrevocably opposed is not one that can last. Well, guess what? Who is responsible? This is the first thing we have to understand. Who did this? Was it men that did this? Are we going to blame men for this again? Are we? All right. Let me see if you guys have any super chows, and then I'll show you one other thing, and we can start taking some calls whenever you're ready. So I did get a super chat, but it looks like that's all. Come on, guys, give us some feedback. I feel like I'm like talking to myself. I see you guys in the chat. I know you're there. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this shift. I think that this is inevitable, and women they're the only, they have to change. Like they're the ones that has to make a change, because men are not allowed to have an opinion on this. They're just doing what they want to do, right? I think that, well, I'm working on something with Peter Wright right now. You guys might know Peter Wright. He has a website called gynocentrism.com. And talking about lineage, because I am like my biggest concern is the fatherlessness. I've seen the damage that does. I know that that's a huge problem. I know it's a growing problem, and it's going to come to a head. And so I was talking to Peter Wright about the importance, I think, of knowing where you come from. This is the thing that I think is the most motivating for men. I'm not going to get into it too much here, but all I will say is lineage is like crucial. So, but yeah, send a super chat, click on the link in the description, join us. I see that someone is in there already. Disorder Drew, if you want to ask something, Darth, put it in the questions channel. I'm not looking in general, I'm looking in questions. So put it in there. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you this. This is a wide ideology gap is opening up between young men and women in countries across the world. So this is everywhere. If you look here, this shows like over time. So we're seeing women in South Korea becoming more and more liberal. I wouldn't say liberal, I would say leftist or feminist. I think that's more fair because obviously feminism is not liberal, but people like to make these equation. They like to equate these things. It's not accurate. I would say women become more leftist. They adopt more feminist ideas, which are in fact leftist ideas, which are totalitarian ideas. And all of them, the whole thing, intersectionality, the climate, the abortion, like all of it. It's all in there, all of it. All of those pet purse puppies. And men are in South Korea drastically becoming the opposite of that. I wouldn't say conservative either. I don't think that's precise information, but like kind of non-feminist or anti-feminist. Okay, and we already know that because in South Korea there's a big anti-feminist movement. So you can see that that's going on. In the U.S., you can see that the women are becoming more like feminist than the Korean, but the men are starting to decline. But it's a little limp-dicked there. And then when Germany, I don't know why they have Germany here. I don't know if this maybe is representative of Europe in general, but you can see the trend. Looks like German women are there's like a large spike, but it's sort of relaxed. It's not as bad as us. And the UK has it the worst. The women are more feminist, period, than anywhere else. And the men are finally starting to catch on, and they're sort of moving down. But for a while, we were kind of like close together, like around the 1980s or the 1990s. And then like this big gap happened in the 2010s. I wouldn't say it's because of social media, but I think that the internet has allowed more people to reach, to reach each other and share things. And I think it opened us up internationally. Whereas before, I think that, before the internet, people in the UK talked to people in the UK. They got their information from the UK. It was all like sort of insulated, right? The US was like that. Canada's like that, etc. And now that we have internet, people can get, they can reach out to any part of the world and get some perspectives that they didn't have before. And so this has it's like a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you can get perspectives on things that you didn't know. You can learn things about other cultures you didn't know, but also feminism can spread a lot faster. So that's a problem. And then the last thing, before I take this call from Disorder Drew, speaking of video games, apparently Pokimane, who you guys might know, is leaving Twitch due to a rise in manosphere red pill bullshit. I'm as free as a bird. Pokimane Anis, I don't know her name. I don't watch her. Has announced earlier this week that she was leaving Twitch and has taken to her podcast to explain why. Manosphere red pill bullshit. Well, would somebody please think of the millionaire thought that's like a Twitch streamer? Would somebody please think of her feelings? So yeah, I feel no sympathy, but I don't watch Pokimane. All I know is that she's a Twitch streamer, thought, whatever, and she behaves cute and probably made millions of dollars off of men and now resents them. So whatever. Okay, so I will take your calls I'll take your guys' calls now. We're going to start. Let me just double check, make sure I didn't miss anything. Again, feedthebadger.com/just the tip so that you can call into the show. Darth Sonic says, our boy Disorder Drew wants to know why society seems to block off every positive role a man can have, leaving behind only playboys or transitioning to a woman. Wow, I don't know if I have the answer to that question, but I'll bring you on to talk about it. I'm going to bring Disorder Drew into the chat now. Hello, Disorder Drew. What's up?
It's
Yes, hello. Are you there?
Hello. Have you read the question already, or should I say it?
I read it. Yes, you said, why does society seem to block off every positive role a man can have, leaving behind only playboys or transitioning into a woman?
Well, yeah, it seems to be like if you look at especially the left, it seems to be like that's the thing that they tell. Well, that's what they leave. They block off all other alternatives that are good, which is these are the only things left eventually. It is not the only thing left, of course, but that is what they are portraying as being the only good things.
Do you have a theory as to why this is?
I think it's just because I guess it's because like making the population like if you this is I think it's just an attack on the family structure because uh and also an attack on men because it's much easier to control a population that is dependent on you than that is independent of you. It's kind of hard to explain, but like it seems that if you have a nuclear family, then that's usually a quite solid thing, and it's hard to destroy. And if you destroy that and only have a bunch of like poor relationships and people and women that are primarily married to the state. But I honestly just think that these things left is just because they have just problematized and attacked all the positive things because they thought it was a threat, and now this is the only thing left, and they see it it's not a bad good thing, but they can't be responsible to say that they created this social uh, dynamics that made this being desirable. Like they have said that becoming like Andrew Tate is bad all the time, while simultaneously demonstrating that if you become like Andrew Tate, they're gonna reward you.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I think it is. I think there's a couple things going on. So, firstly, I think that normie men and women, like coffee shop feminists, like academic feminists, even a lot of them, they think that all of this, like what they believe it to be true. Period. They just believe it's right because they're surrounded by people who agree with them, and they live in a bubble, and so they think that it must be right. But I think that there's another thing going on too. I think that most of the people who spread these ideas and these these sort of ways of living that men and women need, that are they're moving apart and all that, the people who are stoicing this division, they're not living that life themselves. They are actually married. They are having children. Like Clementine Ford has kids. She's not dating anyone, right? Gloria Steinem is married. Like these the people at the people in the elite class, will say, and I hesitate to say that, but I don't know how else to put it. They're not living by what they're asking everyone else to live by. So this is, if you like drive men away from women so that there's only the men who don't give a fuck, like the playboys, as you say, that are just gonna they're like dark triad men. They don't care about what like people are telling them. They don't care about, maybe they care less about consent. Maybe they are really forceful. Maybe it works for them, whatever it is, right? And they'll have a harem of women. And I know that this happens because in the black population in America, there's plenty of examples of this. There are pimps, and they will have sex with all of their women, and they will impregnate multiple women because the family has significantly been destroyed enough that this is the case. But the additional benefit is that the journalists and the academics and the activists can point to those men and say this is what men are like because they're the only ones getting laid and they're the only ones they want to pay attention to, while in fact most men are just looking for one person to have get married and have kids with. Is what most men want. Like that's just the way it is, and women want that too by and large, but they're tricked into thinking that they can be a girl boss and have it all, and then wait until like way later in their 30s and 40s to have kids, and then they do that and then they can't have kids because the further along you go, the worse it gets, or they're on the birth control pill and the pill messes with their hormones. And there's lots of great information on that. Aiden Paladin did a whole thing on it. Sydney Watson did something on it. So all of these things are affecting fertility rates. they're affecting relationships, and yet the people who are pushing all this out there, they're not living by any of it. So you could call it a eugenics project, basically. When men decide they want to transition and basically just live as women, so they castrate themselves, they become eunuchs, and then guess what? They're no longer in the gene pool. So you're basically, they're engaging in eugenics. It's done through abortion, it's done through the pill, it's done through the trans ideology. I could go into a whole thing that a feminist created, like a whole flow chart or like a set of steps to essentially ensure population control, and that's what they're doing. And I think that, I mean, that's my theory. It's not the whole thing, but I think that at the very top, that's one of the things they're doing. It's about controlling the population. But another thing is it's about controlling what's left of the population. So men are not supposed to be men, because the biggest threat to authoritarian regimes are men that are going to say no, right? And they're going to push back and they're going to fight. And so we need to castrate them. We need to turn them into, simps. We need to encourage weakness in them. We need to make them dependent. We have to put them on medication. That's why we medicate boys that act up in class. Not because that Ritalin is going to help. It's because it keeps them in line. It keeps them easy to control. And so authoritarian governments are going to be able to do that so that their power is never threatened. And of course, women are easy. You just scare them and they'll basically do whatever the government wants. So this is why they're doing it. They're not living by any of these standards too. They're not living by this shit. They're not even eating the food that we're supposed to eat. Like, we're eating like crap, It's like there's plastics, there's estrogenic phytoestrogens in our food. The processed food has these oils that are bad for us. They reduce our testosterone levels. You've seen the data. The testosterone levels are lower, like in men, than they have been probably ever. People are having fewer kids. They're having them later, and the kids they don't even turn out right. They come out with autism and all kinds of other defects that we've never seen. Like, this has never happened before. So I know that sounds really bleak, but it is the truth about what's happening. But it's not impossible to correct, in my opinion. So that's what I think. But what do you think?
No, I think that's probably right. But I also think that, like, more people having these disorders, I think that's by itself doesn't have to be bad all the time.
It's not bad, you said?
No, I think it's unfortunate, but I don't think it has to be bad. And I don't think it should happen, but if it happens, then the solution is not to make it bad. The solution is instead to the reason why I say it's not inherently bad is, but it's still conditionally bad, because that is because when you have somebody who have like autism or ADHD, for example, they are very easier to abuse, if that makes sense. Like.
Well, there's a disproportionate percentage, I think it might even be a high majority of men who decide they are women are on the spectrum.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They have been diagnosed with autism, and they can be propagandized into transitioning.
Yeah, exactly. But it's because if people have certain mental disorders, and I know this is the case of not just autism, but also sociopathy and schizophrenia, that these disorders by themselves are causing a lot of problems to the individual. Can do, of course. However, it usually doesn't harm. It's more likely to harm themselves than other people, right? But when you add politics, political extremism, or religious extremism to these disorders, then they can actually become more of a threat to themselves, but also to other people. Because if you combine autism with an extreme political ideology, and I would say that gender ideology, and I think you know what I mean, it's an extreme religious political ideology, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And
I mean, there's a cult roots to it too. Like, it's literally religious.
No, absolutely,
like, it's not
right?
just to that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't have to get into that because some people might get upset, but I mean, they believe
I just wanted to say that you're right about that. And the reason why I compared that to other disorders like sociopathy and schizophrenia, and that is that, as we probably can figure, that these disorders also doesn't mix very well with extreme politics or extreme religion. But autism by itself is actually a bigger detriment than sociopathy and schizophrenia when combined with extreme religions and extreme politics. And I do have autism myself. I don't have any of the other things, but I do have autism, and I know that is actually a bigger, that's actually more danger. Like, mental disability by itself is usually not dangerous to other people. It's almost always dangerous to the individual who has it rather than to other people. But it is, of course, but when you combine with extremism, it becomes dangerous, like on a wider scale, right? And it's also because people that have disabilities are more easier to abuse, especially from like a systemic point of view, and that is dangerous, and that's the bad thing. That's what I mean. It's bad. I don't think that having these disorders by themselves always have to be so terrible. I usually think that that's rather neutral things, to be honest.
Well, I mean, I didn't really say they were terrible, but I do think that
I know you didn't.
There are things that like you can adapt to and you can like use to your advantage, but there are also things that probably didn't have to happen. Because I think that a lot of what causes this is like stuff in our environment. It's not like a naturally occurring thing. I mean, sometimes it might be.
No, that's true. That's absolutely true. Because like, and also like you can develop these physical or mental disorders due to accidents.
Accidents, abuse. Well, yeah, sure. There's lots of
things. Like people might not realize it, but like technically, like having a danger, a personality disorder, it's just as much caused by damage as, for example, a spinal cord injury, if that makes sense. Like, it's just that you have been damaged, and therefore your body's function is impaired because of that. And people really need to like not have such a hard line distinction between these two things, because there are usually a lot of overlaps. I use this as an example, right? And I'm saying that, of course, as you said, shouldn't have to happen. Like, as I say, it's okay to have a disorder, regardless of what kind of disorder that is. Well, more or less, right? But if you could, but to make someone disabled is horribly evil. Like, if you would purposely make somebody who would otherwise be normal not be, right? That is by itself. However, if you have to have genetic traits for a disorder, then you should, and you still want kids, there's nothing wrong with you still having kids, even if you can pass that on to your kids, because like you can still live with that. And I'm not saying that's wrong. That's not wrong. That's fine. What I'm saying is to hurt someone so they develop a disorder, that's wrong. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, I have a few disorders, and one is somewhat definitely like partially genetics. And so there's a likelihood that I might pass it on, but I don't see that as being bad.
I understand.
But like, it is bad if you were to hurt somebody so that they develop a mental disorder or a physical disorder. Actually, like it's the same type of thing. Like, if you abuse a child to the point that he or she becomes a sociopath, that's not fucking any less of terrible than, or it might be lesser, but that's very similar to abusing somebody so that their body doesn't work properly. Like, it's the same. You damage someone. Like, that's horrible. That's evil. That's wrong. And there's no people who does that are bad people. Like, there's just no way around that. But my point is that if something happened and that is part of the and you can't do anything about that, then lamenting over that is what it is. That's not going to be productive. The best thing is to accept it and try to have the best life and move on. And that's what I'm seeing with the eugenics things being so evil, is that it's targeting people that already have like problems, physical problems because
But
if there's
isn't
something,
that the purpose of eugenics projects?
yeah, it is. It is
To
the
essentially
purpose.
cull the weak, right? So they're not just culling the weak; they're creating the weak to cull them. So they're
Exactly. That's why it's
making
called
men
self
weak. You
abuse.
know, I know people
Like
don't like the saying like weak men make hard times, but that is what's happening. Like their men are weakened. It doesn't mean they can't keep things running, but if you can't tell me that men are not in a worse state now than they have been. That's literally where we're at, and it's
yeah,
for a
but
number of reasons. What was
yeah,
that?
that is true. But there's also many things. But we also need to make sure we don't go back to a previous role that men had because the male roles in the past were always kind of negative, in my opinion. Um,
You mean like dying in wars and stuff?
yeah, and also like forced to be the primary breadwinner and all that jazz, and also like having more distance to raising children. I just think that
Yeah, I
the
understand.
traditional role of men is like terrible, and that is the role that have been used to
Yeah,
be anti-men because they have considered that, oh well, since fathers aren't that involved with kids anyway, there's no needs, that's why they should be. That's basically what you
yeah,
see. Like they are literally basing their anti-family laws in traditionalism in a way, and that's the reason why you can't just go back to that. Um, but what is important to notice is that there are men that are of various demographics, are as you see, uh, abused differently, right? As you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, yeah,
and it's very important to know that, to point that out, because otherwise this might be uh, like passed through the fingers. Like you see what I'm going with that?
mm-hmm,
Like you
mm-hmm,
say that they're specifically targeting men that have neuropsychiatric disorders for medication and for like uh, castration, really, right?
yeah,
Like we do see that there is an intersectionality when it comes to the misandric abuse that we see in society too, right?
yeah,
Um, so that's really important uh, to also like to underline, so that because if you
I do think that men were traditionally involved in their children's lives. I mean, like
yeah, I
the
think
truth
that
is,
too.
I think they were, yeah, because the one of the reasons why we have all the problems we have is because men are not involved, and that means they must have historically been involved, like probably to a great degree. But
Right, but
we
that's
don't live in that. That's not, yeah, like not just because of single motherhood, but I mean mostly because of it now. You know,
yeah, but my
so
main point is that to say that men should be less involved with raising kids than women are. That's basically what I was going at, and
yeah, yeah. I
I don't
mean,
want that to
sure,
be the
but
case.
I think that I think that even like father involvement on a lesser scale than mother involvement is still like immensely beneficial
Of course
to
it is.
children. Obviously, yes,
Yeah, like
even if it's less, but
yeah,
and I think that
yeah, but
as kids get older, they pull away from their mother and pull towards their father also.
yeah, that's true. I'm not just that
Yeah.
with myself actually in a way. Um, but like I do think that when it comes to raising kids, but my point is that I'm just against it being like a
Hi,
mandate,
Jojo.
like a mandate that that people say, well, it should be women who are along with who are raising kids more, not
Okay.
men. And I think that's like that's what I don't like. I don't like the fact that that that
Yeah.
that you're saying that, well, if you're gonna have to have kids, then it should be the woman who should be the primary caregiver. Like, why? Why?
Yeah.
Why
No.
can't the
I'm.
couple decide that themselves? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's basically what I would like going with. Like, it's not fair to like have these like rigid gender roles, because what we know is that men aren't defined by gender role. Men are defined by sex taxonomy. Um,
Yeah.
and but what I'm saying is that, going back to the article, they basically take away family. They say marriage is bad. They say
Yep.
abortion is good, and you should not. They say toxic masculinity is bad because you don't show emotions, but you should not have any opinion about abortion, which is like, okay, so it's toxic masculinity as they say it's good or bad. Like, can they make up their mind? It's like doesn't go together. So you can't show emotion. You can't. You shouldn't care if like. This is what I was thinking about. You shouldn't care if a woman you're with have an abortion or not, and you shouldn't care if a woman, and you shouldn't feel differently about that. Nor should you feel differently if a woman wants to have sex with you or not. Like you should be able to have sex with a woman, but the second she said no, you should stop, and you should, of course, and you should never feel bad about that. No, if you're having sex with a woman, right, and she suddenly says no, then of course you should accept that, but you can still like feel annoyed by it. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean she has to put out, but you can. But so my point is that how can a man be like completely ambivalent if a woman wants to have sex with him? He can do it if she wants to, but if she doesn't, he should just like completely like drop everything and just like be like have a flat affect. Like what the fuck? How that doesn't go together? Does he have any emotion at all?
Yeah.
Like
No, they're not. No, they're not. It's all about control. And I think part of it is also that they indulge in the paradox. You know, they create paradoxical standards for men, and they think that's fine, and they like to watch men squirm. And I think that's why they're afraid of men who think for themselves and say, you know what, I'm not doing that. That's the only reason why people like Andrew Tate are that trouble them so much, because he sort of symbolizes that. But you have to look at it as symbolic only, you know, like not literal, because they're not paying attention to the things that he actually says.
No, because then they probably agree with him more.
What was that?
Because then they probably agree with him more.
Yeah.
That's like he still supports like male disposability as being the status quo, right? He will really reject him. They would say that he's wrong about. They don't say he's wrong about that, because if they said he's wrong about that, they need to accept the women have a privilege, right? And they're never going to accept that.
Well, yeah. But, well, again, he's not even like if men ideologically followed him to the letter, he would not be as much of a threat to their power as people like us are, because what we're talking about ultimately would give men like more power over their lives than someone like Tate. I mean, Tate's basically a tradcon, and he's basically like blue pilled, and in my opinion,
in my
opinion, still feel threatened by that though. So you see that tells you like what the real issue is not that. That's why I say don't when I say the AT word, don't freak out, because it's not about that. It's the saying goes, when it comes to progressivism in general, the thing is not the thing. It's only about the revolution. So
no, exactly.
Yeah.
But something I'm thinking about is that when it comes to blocking all roles, they basically think that men should just be forced to pay child support, and at the same time should have no opinion about abortion. Okay, so if that makes sense, right? Though they say that a man should have no preference if he makes a woman pregnant. He should have no preference if the woman wants to have an abortion or not, or if she wants, and if she doesn't, he should have no preference, and if she wants to stay with her or not. He should be completely ambivalent to all of these things. Like, what the fuck is that supposed to be? How? Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, the only way.
But
the only way
it doesn't.
It's
all about
sense.
whatever benefits the women. That's basically the way that it makes sense.
But why did they?
If they want abortions, women benefit from abortions. If women don't want abortions, they benefit from child support. So it's all about what does the woman get. That's all.
Well, if they're going to say that should be, then why do they say this so-called toxic masculinity is bad? Because they said that means men not showing emotion. Well, if these are going to be the standards, he's going to have some emotion. Then, if they want to have that standards, then they kind of like have to have this supposed toxic masculinity for that to even work.
Well, again, I mean, I understand that it doesn't make sense, but this is the way of things right now. This is what they want. I am with you. It's illogical, obviously, but it's not about the thing. It's about control. It's about power, and that's what they have. I mean, they want to convince us that they're not in power, but they actually are. But look, we gotta wrap this up. So
I used to have to. I'm gonna wrap it up now. basically what I'm saying is that what they're leaving is that the only solution for a man to be is to have the attitude and the mindset of Andrew Tate, because that's like the only fucking mindset because that's the best mindset in their scenario. Like if just having a bunch of random sex with random women is the best thing a man can ever fucking do, and there's no point in trying anything, right? Then only caring about money and looks becomes the most important thing ever. They say you shouldn't be like Andrew Tate, but at the same time, you should absolutely be like Andrew Tate, because no one other man is acceptable, because all other ways men could be is like, we don't really allow that because that's inconvenient, right? That's basically what they're saying, right? It doesn't go together. He's like the only way you can be a man in their society, in their ideal society, right? Because that's the only way you can fucking avoid the fucking punishments, and there's no other. Like there is like, that's the ideal. That's their ideal. Like that's their ideal, right? So basically, whenever feminists want to claim that Andrew Tate or even fucking someone like Dalla Mulvaney, whatever, they say that they're bad, which I agree with. And then I'm like, feminism is the reason why these are the things
why
that
this is happening. Yes, it's the reason.
This is why this is happening. You've made this bed, lay in it, or you admit you're wrong. Sorry, that's what is. That's all I have to say. Hashtag no, but you know what I'm saying.
I think that if it weren't for feminism, there probably wouldn't be a Dylan Mulvaney.
Okay. There might be one, but they wouldn't like be.
There might be, but I think that actually there's a high likelihood there wouldn't be. I think that's what I believe, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right. But my point is that there probably would be like trans women that would be like that person, right? But I don't think that they would be the people like that would get that amount of positive coverage and spotlights, if that makes sense. That's what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? And I think the same is for Andrew Tate. It would probably be guys like that, but guys like that would not get the same amount of positive and negative, not mainly positive, attention and spotlight if it wasn't for it. Like, because if they just let them be, like, this, have the same rights as women and be seen as equally positively as women should be seen, then these examples would not be so get this amount of coverage and frankly privilege and wealth, right? Because these two examples I mentioned is getting a lot of privilege and wealth, I might actually say, right? And feminism is probably why that is the case, because they have blocked off almost all other ways. Like, honestly, I'm still going to like have a relationship and have my family because I don't give a shit about stupid society, right? I just care about my own.
Yes.
But I'm not going to get the same amount of privilege and wealth, but I don't care. I don't want that.
Most people, if you're like, you know, a normal human being that's like well adjusted, you don't want everything. You just want enough. You just want like your little piece of heaven, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, of course. I mean, but they want to act like everything is zero sum because, I mean, they want us crazy. They basically want us to be emotionally, you know, insane and like at each other's throats. And this is the funny thing about this whole thing is like this division between, well, supposed division between Gen Z boys and Gen Z girls, is something that they created, and they're looking at it going, "What's happening? Why are we moving further apart? We've only sowed division. We've only done this over like generations, 100 plus, maybe 200 years of propaganda. We've only been working at this for a long time, and now we're seeing like the results, and it's like, what happened? Well, this is what you get, you know. And there will be suffering, and there will be pain, but if you just look to your own affairs, and I think that you'll win. I mean, ultimately, you will win because you will, you know, I think your odds are better. I'll just put it that way. There are definitely like things that have to be changed, and I'm not saying we shouldn't fight for that, but you know, there's like stuff that's just like beyond us, and it was here before we were born, and we're dealing with it now. So
yeah, it's more like it's. I do think we should fight for what is worth fighting for, but we should also let bad societies die, and it's way more important of focusing on surviving what's going on rather than to
exactly,
like,
we the focus on surviving, exactly.
yeah, but we still need to defend the rights of men, right? Because
I agree.
people defend the rights of women, but that's what they're doing. But this is not the focus of this channel. This channel is about defending rights of men. That also mean you shouldn't defend the rights of women, but that's a good thing to do. But that's not our thing. It's not the thing about HBR. That's about defending rights of men, which is actually more important because we have less rights. So that's it's just saying, like, that's our priorities, and I think it's a good one. Like, I think obviously we should defend the rights of men, but we should also focus on surviving society and collapsing Western society rather than to save Western society. We should fight for our rights and make sure our rights exist as soon as possible, and that we can maintain our right throughout the history. But collapsing societies just have to be waited out while we fight for rights.
Yeah, you have to be prepared to endure, right?
Yeah, I'm just going to survive with my family, and some of my descendants are going to be well and good, and I'm still going to defend myself and my rights. So I know I'm going to be fine because I'm going to protect my kids when I have kids, and I'm able to outsmart society because I have talent for that. So in a way, the eugenics that they are making is kind of like playing against them because it makes their worst enemies, which is me, become all their enemies.
Yep.
And that's why I'm so positive. I think I'm gonna win. Even I'm gonna win after, maybe not even in my lifetime, right? But I'm still gonna win eventually. Yeah. I'm sure of it. Absolutely, because the thing that our enemies are pushing is not going to last. That's basically what it is. Because it's unsustainable. Eventually, we're just going to get our family back, and basically, just when we wait out the collapse, is to just try to defend our rights and our interests as much as possible, in order to endure a failing society, so that we can actually or our descendants or my descendants are going to participate in a better society that's going to come from the ashes of this crumbling, terrible society that we happen to have now. It's not saving it, but we can survive it.
Yeah. All right, Drew, I'm going to move you back into the screening room. Thank you for the call. And talk to you next time I do one of these, I guess, if you want to call in.
Sure. Bye-bye.
All right, man. I'm going to move you back. Okay, no one's come in to call yet, so I guess I'm going to read your Super Chow and then wrap it up there. So I got one from Great Indoors. He gives us $10 and says, I recently saw a picture of 3 graphs in the Discord server. I'm sure you saw that one too, Brian. It depicts the widening gap in political views between men and women in South Korea, the US, and the UK. But I want to point out that only in the case of South Korea, the men went slightly more conservative. In the US and UK, the men went marginally more progressive, while the women in all of those countries are going radically progressive. Thus, the radicalization is with the women, while the men's movement gets the domestic terrorism label. Yes, of course. And I think if this is the graph you're talking about, I saw this on Twitter and I shared it. So let me remove Badger Chan from there. And I think that's the thing that you are talking about. I saw it on Twitter and I shared it. And I talked about it too. And that is the trend. But of course, I mean, again, of course, it's not about, this has never been about, like, I don't know, like some shift that they don't understand, or this being radical or whatever. I mean, it's just they don't have a problem with the women becoming more radical. They have a problem with the men not towing the line. And even when they toe the line, as you can see in the UK, they did kind of move with them. They're not towing it enough. It needs to be way more severe. There has to be an absolute rejection of this. So But anyway, I'm gonna wrap the show up there since no one else has called in, and we've gone for about an hour and a half. So thanks guys for coming on, and I hope that you continue the conversation. Let me know what you guys think about what we talked about. Again, there's a link in the description. And yeah, I mean, generally what's going on here is that women are moving further left and men are mostly staying the same, except South Korea, and then the UK, they've even moved a bit left. So there is no like my far right, my both sides. I was talking about my both sides. It's not a thing. There's no my both sides. Women are going way the fuck over here, and men are moving like right around in the middle someplace. They've either moved a little this way or a little that way. That's it. So it's not radical. Women are the ones being radicalized by all this. Anyway, so if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave me a comment, let me know what you guys think about what we talked about. What do you think about Disorder Drew's comments? I'd like to hear from you guys, and please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on the Badger Lodge, and we'll talk to you all in the... Oh, and by the way, none of my dissenters called in. I've had people that are like getting on my case in the chat, coming after us, and I always tell them, hey, call into the show. If you want to disagree, we can talk about it. They never do. So what's up? What's up? Call in. Talk to me. Tell me why I'm wrong. All right. Anyway, thanks so much for coming on today's show, and I'll talk to you all in the next one.
Are machines, dude. Okay, they are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.